And we're here.
We
We did it.
are
How are
back.
you?
I'm well. How are you?
Back. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I always feel like I'm running and I just got here. So perfect
Oh,
timing.
okay. Well,
Perfect
you
timing.
made it. That's what matters.
That's what matters. That's what matters. I'm on my way is my key phrase. That's my key
Mm.
phrase right there. I'm on my way.
But do you really be on your way?
I I am. I was trying to explain to somebody last night. I said, I'm a Virgo. And I said, if you know Virgos, we try to cram in like a million things in 15 minutes. We want to maximize every minute of the day and use it to the fullest capability that it can possibly do. We can never accomplish that because we can't be perfect,
Exactly.
but
It's
we aim for perfection. We aim
right.
to execute the perfect plan.
Yet it's so ineffective because you're doing it wrong.
This is true. This is true.
So
But
perfect that, and you might be onto something.
we don't want to admit fault sometimes. We don't want to necessarily accept it. I've accepted blame in my life, but we try to fight it. But yes, no, it is a so I say don't blame me, blame my horoscope. This is when I was born.
Don't blame me. Blame my horoscope. Oh,
You like
that's rich. I love that.
come on. Come on, come on. Uh
Oh,
ladies
that's
and
great.
gentlemen, welcome to Epic Lunch and Learn. I'm glad you're here with us. We had a faboo conversation last week about rentals and what was going on in the rental world. And so I thought it would be best and great for us to obviously go ahead and let's continue the conversation because it's about a concept that we talked about yesterday actually on the show. Yesterday we talked about hesitation economy, and I felt like right now I feel like the economy is just like I don't know. It was weird. The guest John Andrade was with us. He's the author of the 4A formula, and he talked about just these 4 A's that kind of he's kind of seen his life kind of develop on access and alignment and actions and accountability and all this good stuff. And the thing that was interesting to me in that concept was I said people are smarter nowadays, and he kind of pushed back on that. I felt like people are smarter with all the information that's being provided now. Whether whatever platform that you're on. Now, some of it you got to take with a grain of salt. Not it's not, but I think people are wiser, I feel like. I don't know. Maybe and I love to get your perception on that, but I feel like if people are smarter, then why aren't we moving in a better step, a better scenario?
I think that's the question that you should be asking. So, um, I do not think people are smarter. I don't believe people are wiser. And we do just because we have this access to an abundance of information. We have access to more information than we've ever had in history. But that doesn't mean we use it,
Hmm.
you know? And a lot of it, especially since a lot of our information comes from the internet, like it's great. Love it. Love Al Gore's internet. But at the same time, it is also used for evil,
Right.
right? So I think that wisdom part comes in because look at the problems that we've had over the last decade with people who just don't simply fact check or look at a website and go, "Ooh, is that .gov or .edu?" The information is out there, but that doesn't mean it's being used correctly,
Yeah.
you know?
They I think the reason why I started talking about this this hesitation economy, this we're scared to make the next step was I heard a stat. It said the average American retirement account is $88,400. That's the average American retirement account, and I was
Not
like,
gonna make it.
that ain't good enough. Like that,
Not enough.
man.
Not enough. I have those conversations with my friends, especially as you know, I'm on my Series 7 journey. And I was like, guys, you know how much money we need to actually retire? Like we are seriously behind. We have to play catch up. We've been behind like probably since the 7th grade. Like there
Correct.
was, it is it, we were we started out behind the line But even now, right? And just as a generation, right? Um, even now, we're so far from where we need to be, because what's the millennial age range? We're between what, the
27 to
30,
43,
is it 27?
27, 28 through 43. 43
Okay.
is your oldest millennial.
Yeah, okay, yeah, right. Our oldest millennials. Now, the younger ones, they could still have a chance. And I try to get as many young people as possible, just to get them started on good habits. But those are of us that are over 35. Like, we got a lot of catching up to do, which is also why we have so many different streams of income. I know we were once the lazy generation, right? But if you really think about it, we changed the scope, we changed the landscape of how life in America operates.
Yeah, you guys were whining so much. Yeah, we had to change it
Yeah,
for you guys.
you did not change it. Y'all didn't. We did.
No,
We made
you,
up jobs.
you,
We made
you.
up titles.
Wham,
We
wham.
decided that we're not staying loyal to companies because they're not loyal to us. So we gotta, like, that whole stick with the company, get a pension. We were never gonna get a pension. I'd be shocked if we get Social Security, right? And but that's a whole toss up. But we had to change the landscape of how things went, and then them kids up under us, they kind of ran with it. So
Gen Zers. Yeah,
yeah.
I think because sometimes the question is always why. Why do you do what you do? Why are we having these conversations? And I think it all stems from these basic concepts that we're talking about today. And the concept ultimately is, hey, look, the average American has $88,000 in their retirement account. I know, and the world probably knows that's not enough money, right? And so
Hmm.
then we play the numbers game. Obviously we're in the mortgage business, we do numbers, and we say, let's just look at it basic, right? If you wanted, what's a good number, Jess? I mean, is it 80,000? In
Uh,
retirement. I mean, what's a number?
No. So let's say you have a couple, right? So let's say
Hmm.
it's you and the missus, and you don't plan to leave anything to the kids, right? Kids are
Hmm.
out of the equation. Just you two adults need just over 2 mil. You need like 2.2.
Well, I mean, just give me a number from a yearly perspective. I mean, we're going to get to that number, but I was going to work backwards just to get there.
From a yearly perspective, okay. So if we are, let's say it's 2025 and we are accounting for just the inflation that has
Inflation.
happened this year, 130 a year without
So
children,
okay, so then basically let's say 130,000, and in retirement on average you're going to live for about 20 years.
which is sad. It is so sad.
Well,
But yeah,
and we talk about the 40/20 rule, right? I mean, it's not a rule, but it's something that, maybe I got to put that I got to trademark that, but it's the 40/20. So you put 40 years of work in for 20 years of a choice, hopefully, and
hmm,
in your choice days, let's say you do need $130,000 times 20 years, that's 2.6 million.
see,
So the conversation of the reason why we're having this conversation about real estate investing and what are good ways to real estate invest is because if that's the accumulation number that you have to get to, if the end result to win the game, to win your game of Monopoly is that you need to have $2.6 million accumulated, we have to devise a plan and a strategy to get you there. And to me, like I said, this earth has been around 2 billion years plus, but the only things I've seen that have exponentially grown is either stocks or real estate. And so that's why we have this conversation of how are you going to get to $2.6 million? If
right.
everything you're saying, in fact, is, hey, the average person, and you can probably Google this, just the average person, what, stays at a job 3 years? I
Yeah.
think it's 3 years right now.
Like right now it's like 3 years. Um, I mean, and like look at who the workforce is, you know? Um, but it's just, but also, the landscape of whether it be corporate America from the top down, right? It's different. Um, like when our parents were working, they were guaranteed pensions and health insurance after they retired. Company packages were very different than they are now. And so we can't afford to stay somewhere for 3 years. And also, we as a generation realized that we were just a number or a name on a paper, and these companies could destroy our lives at any point because somebody needed a bonus or because somebody didn't make the right decisions from at the top. So it's dangerous for us to stay in one spot. I do
Sure.
know one person in, which is crazy because she is in this industry. She is in mortgages. She has been at the same lender for just over 20 years now. She started, it was her first job out of college. Been there, she's pretty much spent her whole adult life there. That is an anomaly.
Is her first name Renee?
No.
Okay. Because I know somebody, and I was like, maybe it's her because she bleeds the color of her company. But yeah, I mean that doesn't necessarily exist as much as it used to anymore. So the conversation ultimately is about real estate, is about investing. But I wanted people to have a backdrop of why we talk about this because we kind of recognize this, and I love that Jess is working on her Series 7. I myself had my 6 and 63 for a period of time, probably about 6 years. And these were concepts that we learned about. Another concept to consider is like when you look of retirement buckets, right?
Mm, yeah.
You talk about Social Security, you talk about pension, the lack there is of one, unless you're working for the state or a city, municipality,
Right.
or a teacher or a firefighter or a police officer, or you're a veteran. That's about it. I mean, we're all into one hand can tell you who has pensions,
Right.
and then the third bucket would be inheritance, and then which sometimes you speak to these. I ain't giving her nothing. I ain't got
Oh,
nothing. She ain't getting nothing.
yeah.
She gonna have to,
That
man.
earn it. And like it's always the people with either an insane amount of money or the people who like really don't have like there's no middle ground with that.
I didn't
But
have nothing.
people
They
are
never
good
gave
for
me
leaving
nothing.
debt.
Yeah. And the fourth final bucket that is huge is personal savings.
Absolutely.
So when you break down, and that goes for anyone that's listening to this, we have 135 people listening right now, that whether it's Dante, whether it's Jess, whether it's Craig, Paul, Dave, at the end of the day, we all have the same buckets. It's four buckets: your Social Security, your pension, your inheritance, and your personal savings. And for most people, the reality is it's going to come down to your personal savings. What are you doing for yourself? What resources are you accumulating? And for most of us, whether you're a millennial, a Gen X, myself, a Gen Zer, we're in the accumulation phase.
Hmm.
And what that means is we have to accumulate resources, i.e., money, and have to have enough so we can get this bucket of money so then we can have the choice to retire. Some people want to work until they're dead. They want to, hey, I'm going to go to
Yeah.
work every day. I'm 90 years old. I want to put the shirt and tie on because that's a different conversation, but that's a sense of purpose. Some people, the purpose of life was to go to work. They may not be able to create something on their own accord that gives them a level of purpose in life. And so they prefer to just go to work and be a part of the cog. I want to be a
Right.
part of the inventory line.
And which is totally fine, especially when, if that's the way you choose to live life, especially like in like human services, right? Like if
Sure.
there's a good social worker out there that wants to stay in the game, by all means, stay in the game because there's not enough of you, you know, like professions like that. Um, Nothing wrong with it, but like personally, like I don't think I'll ever stop working, but it's not something I want to do every day necessarily after a certain point, right? Um, I can, oversee, manage, whatever, invest, but do I want to work every day? No, this is not the way life was intended to be. Nobody can convince me that it is.
You have to have those choices in life. And in order to have those choices, you have to have enough resources to have those choices. To choose, hey, I'm going to work today. Hey, you know what? I'm going to take 2 weeks off. Hey, I'm choosing not to work. And so we're here today to talk about real estate investing because we want to help you get those choices. And I found real estate investing to be a great avenue for people to do so. So let's get into it. That was my little segue into this.
Okay.
Um, we last week we talked about house hacking, and we talked about, due to the cost, due to interest rates where they are, the best probable way for maybe a young Gen Zer to some degree is to house hack their way into accumulating properties and setting yourself up long term.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we really went in depth in that conversation, and that was awesome. So let's talk about other avenues, which would be, into short-term rental, mid-term rental, and long-term rental. Jess, I'm going to open up the floor to you because I know you had a news and notes that you wanted to kind of go over, and we can go whichever way you want to.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, last week we ended with Burr. You want to say it?
Brr.
So we ended with Burr, right? Okay. So house hacking, right? So I
Mhm.
think we should start at the top. Um there is a very strategic decision that someone has to make when they decide to become an investor. You're either going to flip or you're going to hold, right? So you're going to flip or you're going to be a landlord. Um Flipping is about generating, active lump sum profits quickly, while buying and holding or renting, right, is about building passive long-term wealth, right? I don't want to just call it income, because you're compounding that growth. So the best strategy for this depends entirely on someone's capital, time commitment, and most importantly, risk tolerance,
Mm.
because not everybody is has the space to be as risky, right? The younger you are, the more risk you can take. Um, the older you are, depending on your financial state, you may not be able to take a lot of risk. You may not be able to afford that, just in life in general. So, a lot of successful investors, though, are doing the hybrid approach, right? So if you're choosing the flip, right, you need some renovation expertise or someone you trust fully, not just random contractors. You need someone on your team. Um, and you need to turn over that capital quickly, and you have to actively be involved, and you have to have a high tolerance for market risk. But on the other hand, if you're going to buy and hold, just know it's a long term commitment. It's going to create some passive income. It's going to help you maximize tax deductions. Um, and this for people who have a lower risk tolerance. However, that doesn't mean it's foolproof, because at the end of the day, you're still choosing to become a landlord, which can be a rough go. So, right, so we've got the flipping or buy and hold. And then we've got the new hotness, right? The short-term rentals, which are
Mm.
really like they really like have a foothold now. And like there's some pros and cons to short-term rentals as well. They can generate significantly higher monthly revenue. They require a substantial time commitment, and they expose you to, I want to say, unique operational risk, unique regulatory risk, because the rules are a little different, right? So let's go over your pros. Higher income potential, flexible pricing, right? Um,
Yep.
you get a little more personal use and control, right? Your property is not just out the game. You could actually use it if you needed to. You don't have any long-term problem tenants. And it's easier to sell because chances are it's going to be unoccupied. There's nobody living there. It's a short-term thing. Easier to sell. Um, but on the flip side, it's inconsistent and volatile income, right?
Sure.
Intense management. It's an intense time commitment. Again, the regulatory risk, especially depending on how you get that mortgage, which we'll circle back to. And then you've got higher operating costs, because there's definitely going to be more wear and tear, turning it over for guests. And then My favorite is back to the mortgage, right? I see a lot of people try to go out and get something like an FHA loan or a VA loan and tell us it's going to be their primary with the intention of it definitely being an investment property. Don't do that. Don't like do not try to get over on the system because one, we're like your parents. We know everything. We know the system is set up for us to know if you're trying to game it. And once you are red flagged in for mortgages, right? And that's a whole it's a real thing. It is a
It
real list.
is.
Once you are red flagged, it is going to be difficult for you to ever get a mortgage again. And then you're going to have to operate strictly in cash.
It's mortgage
Don't
fraud.
It's mortgage fraud and it's real. Like there's some serious fines and some serious prison time. I didn't say jail, I said prison because
Federal.
right, it is a federal offense.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that,
No, no,
you know?
I love what you say there, and let's just put some real numbers to it. And the concept of a short term rental, if you were receiving $200 a day,
Mhm.
so hey, I got a property in New Buffalo, Michigan. There you go. I'm throwing out New Buffalo, Michigan.
New Buffalo. Okay.
You've never heard of New Buffalo?
Only when you said it a couple weeks ago.
Oh my God. And she's from Michigan, folks. So here, let me
Obviously,
explain.
it's not that exciting.
Apparently, the only way we can get into Michigan is we take 294 and we take 294 south. We got to go through Indiana,
Mhm.
down through Indiana, and we curve into Michigan. The first exit of Michigan is New Buffalo. And so that's the little for all the Illinois folks, all the little Indiana folks.
That's
That's
why
where,
we don't know it because
yeah,
it's down here.
it's down there.
Nobody comes down here. We are all about this and all of this in here, and then Canada over here, but
Yeah,
nobody's
we
down here.
right there, baby. So that's where the Illinoisans and the Indianians hang out in Michigan. And where there's beaches there, it's right on Lake Michigan. We go
Okay.
there. So it's literally I could be in Michigan in about an hour and a half from now. It'll be 2.5 because Michigan is Eastern Standard Time. So
Yes.
I
Well,
technically
you
I
just
lose an hour.
you time travel.
Yes, I time travel, but New Buffalo is the first exit, and the last exit in Indiana it has a zoo, so it's pretty neat. So you can go to
Oh,
the zoo, and then you can go to the beach if you have kids and all this good stuff. But
oh,
anyway,
zoos
or if
make
you
me
like
sad.
animals, you're one of those people, huh?
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yep. Sure am.
You know what? Not until I was an adult did I meet people like this. I mean, the zoo was like, "Oh my God, let's go to the zoo. Look at the chimpanzee, the monkey," and then I had all these PETA lovers, and they were explaining to me how you know uh, how you're in what is it? You're jailing all these animals. I was like, really?
Yeah, I've had a high emotional IQ from a very young age, and it has always made me sad. I never like going to the zoo. It's different if like it's a sanctuary, right?
Mm,
And they are being rescued and released,
right.
or if they had, but to be like born in captivity, or even worse, be wild and then be put in captivity. Ugh.
If it's saving them, if they're endangered species,
Sure, if it's saving them, but
right? But you
them
would have
kids
to go.
are fine.
You would have to itemize that one by
Right,
one.
exactly.
Where you from? Okay, we saving you. Where you at? Okay, got it. But yeah, no. So if
All right,
you
we said
had
200, right?
$200 a day,
Okay, 200. Let's go.
and you generally there's 30 days in a month,
Mhm.
and so I would imagine that most short-term rentals, the goal would be 20 days.
Yep.
So 200 times 20 days, $4,000.
Right.
So to some degree, to maximize a short-term rental, you can say, "Hey, I'm going to make $4,000 in a month if I can rent it out for at least 20 days." The other 10 days are going to be spent cleaning,
Yeah.
as you said, the
The
maintenance costs of,
the
the
floor.
turnover, the
Yep.
constant turnover the week to week. Now, that is a job.
That is a jobby job.
Man,
Like,
I need a calendar. I gotta market. I gotta make sure I got a location that's desirable. I need to make sure I have pictures. I gotta clean. My
and
goodness.
then it's communicating with like you have to communicate with all of these different people So like we are high level communicators and we have to be because of what we do.
Sure.
But not everyone is like that, right? And so maybe you'll run into a couple more high level communicators, but you might run into people who just don't operate like that. And it's difficult. And that is, you never know what you're going to get. That right there, that is like, that's a box of chocolates. You
Love
just
it.
never know.
Forrest Gump today. I never thought I was going to go there today. Okay.
Oh, what? Yeah.
All right.
Come
We
on
can go
now.
Forrest Gump.
You
All
and
right.
me, peas and carrots.
It's like I hit you with a little Doctor Doolittle, and then we go with the Forrest Gump. All right, so we'll
Yeah.
we'll keep adding up all the movies that we find out as we talk. But yeah, no. So I mean, that's what I look at as a short term rental. $4,000. If everything's going well, with the amount of work that I have to do, and then what is my mortgage payment, right? Because that is going to more than likely be escrowed. So I got taxes, insurance, PMI included. Maybe no PMI if I put enough money down.
Mm-hmm.
So if my average mortgage payment right now is $2,000, I'm making 2 grand on one piece of property. So now it becomes a game of how many short-term rentals can I accumulate to hit a number that it make it all make sense.
Right. Because if we're free, let's say we're free and clear on those properties.
Hmm.
That's 48,000 a year before we subtract taxes and insurance.
Sure.
But, if we are only at 2,000 a month, we're at 24,000, And that's
Yeah.
like with the amount of work that has to go into a short-term rental, let alone multiple, $24,000 is just not enough for me.
Sure.
Is
I mean,
you
what
know?
the average American is 61, right? Right around
Yeah.
that 60 to 65,000. So, I mean, if we were just trying to get to, par level of where the average American is, I mean, you would have to have 3 of those.
Yeah.
Three would justify, and so that's where I've seen people try to manipulate the short-term rental by really focusing on condos, right?
Mhm.
Smaller places to clean up. Still, the cleaning is going to maintenance is your number one cost, but condos, because of affordability, can I buy multiple condos that might be more affordable than buying houses? But then you have to be careful with the rules and regulations of the condo building.
And those HOA fees, there are no regulations around those HOA fees.
X.
So the way that they can spike can eat into your profit margin like that.
Yeah, and depending on where you are located, I'm just thinking of, I know there's been a lot of ordinances over the years, Georgia in particular, Atlanta, there's been a lot of cutback because, areas that were predominantly primary,
Mhm.
residential areas, and now all of a sudden you got these rental situations.
Yeah.
Um,
People, all
there's
the different types of people coming and going constantly if it's a short-term rental.
Correct. And you just don't feel safe. And so there's been a lot of pushback and ordinances have been put on to the short-term rental as people are just not as comfortable with that because they see there's so many eyeballs and so many different people coming in and out. And the neighbors have to feel comfortable.
Right. It's really hard to gauge if you got so many people, turning out. And I think it's different, right? If it's in like maybe a prime tourist area or
Sure.
or like, somewhere like a downtown where there are a lot of businesses. That's completely different. Something near a beach or a ski resort or even a major hospital. But they're not confined to just those spaces.
Correct. And so I think, they came out hot because it was a new concept. And
Hmm.
then and some people are having success. I know I have a couple investors that do have some short-term rentals in great areas. They really spruce up the place, make it look nice. And, you see a lot of Gen Zers, millennials, popping in because, it's a look, it's a vibe, right? For a
Yeah.
weekend, GNO, right? I call it GNO, girls night out, right? So all the girls get together, they do a sleepover together, or all the guys, a bachelor party of some sort. Hey man, we're gonna all go to this place and just chill out, and we all put our money in. Similar to here, and I'm curious, do you guys have boats are real big in Chicagoland area? Are you guys into the boat scene?
So more so north. Yes, Michigan overall. I wouldn't say your Detroit metropolitan area, but yeah, definitely the further north you get or like, towards Lake Michigan or, anything on the water. Um that is like Lake Erie. That's becoming a thing. to
Yeah.
I have a friend, his whole family went. It was like 12 of them and 3 dogs. And they
Yep.
did one of the boat rentals and, they stayed there. It was cool concept for sure.
Expensive though. I mean,
It,
I was like,
yeah.
yeah, we all had to pay like, $500.
Yeah.
$500.
Yeah, because I mean, being a boat owner is expensive, so,
Right.
you know?
Insurance, gas.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a play we see in Lake Michigan, really all down Lakeshore Drive. You can see all these boats. People are renting them out. They have a party of 10, 20. They got the music, they got the booze, and they're just, living their music video, MTV. Uh, wish that was their real life scenarios.
Yeah. That we here in Detroit, there's one boat, um, the Detroit Princess, and you can rent it out, but it is meant to be a party boat. It's older than me. Um, but
Dang.
you don't see calm down. You don't see a ton of them out there.
I thought you were going to say the Love Boat. I was like, Jesus, taking back to the
Don't
70s.
get
See,
me
oh,
started.
oh, crazy.
Oh, so I want to talk about the one in here that is kind of the unsung hero.
Sure.
The midterm rentals, which people don't really think about. So, midterm rentals, or some people call them like medium term, or what you guys know as corporate housing, right?
Hmm.
They are an increasingly popular strategy, because it's kind of the sweet spot, right? It's between the sweet spot between intensive management and the the income, essentially, right? So it's that kind of middle ground. So these midterm rentals, they have leases that they can last 1 to 12 months, but the most commonly they're 3 to 6. Um, and those properties are almost, they're always fully furnished. Um, everything you would need, kind of like a short-term rental. Um, so let's take COVID for instance. COVID, there were nurses traveling everywhere, right? They were needed because there was a shortage. The pay was phenomenal, but they all needed some place to stay. These companies needed to be able to place them somewhere.
Right.
So that was kind of something that was guaranteed. I have a friend who he just bought a new house in Jacksonville, and he kept the old one specifically for this, with the intention of finding a company to partner with specifically for nurses, right? Because you can kind of control your clientele when you have these midterm rentals as well, right? So, I mean,
Sure.
students traveling, people who travel professionally, people in transition. I mean, there are just so many people who need somewhere to stay for 90 days, you know?
Yeah, I mean, generally, they define a midterm rental as someone 90-day, well, really 30 days at the, shortest term to about 9 months.
Yep.
You also see insurance claims, right?
Yep.
People that have had fire damage and stuff like that, with their housing, insurance coverage, they're able to move into a home of nature where the insurance company is actually paying for it. And from a from a landlord's perspective, you can get some high premium from the insurance companies that will pay
Hmm.
to make sure that they're, the people that they've been taking all this money from is, housed. So, I
Right.
mean, it is an opportunity
Yeah.
there. So yeah, I like the midterm rental, I've seen it being used. Like you said, nurses were, I mean, that was the be all end all during
Yeah,
the
it was
pandemic.
huge. It's bigger than people think. You want to hear the numbers? I'm a
Yeah, give me
big
some. Come
All
on.
right. So, short-term rentals, midterm rentals specifically account for 1.6 to 2% of the total housing units in the country. And this is data between 2024 and right now in 2025. So that is a total of 147 million housing units that are midterm or short-term rentals. Um, so that represents about 1.8 to 2.4 million in active short-term listings across the country.
Love it. Some of the cities that really stick out with a midterm rental idea is Tampa Bay, Florida,
Hmm.
Austin, Texas, and these are obviously two places that we're licensed to do business in. Nashville, Tennessee, Phoenix, Arizona, just
Phoenix,
to name
yep.
a couple, just to have an idea. I did see they said Columbus, Ohio, which I was kind of surprised by. I get it, the Buckeyes and Ohio State.
Yeah, I
Why did
guess.
I have to bring that on to this show? I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
It just, it's in me. It's just natural. Yeah, I was born like this, you know. They're just so rude. Anyway, so okay, pros of this:
Hmm.
higher monthly income.
Yes.
They get to bypass some of the restrictive zoning and licensing. Oh, and taxation, because generally, like a lease over 30 days but less than a year, they have different rules.
Hmm.
Normally there's stable occupancy, so you got less turnover. Um, and the quality of tenant is usually better because these are people who are traveling and staying here with a purpose, you know?
Right.
Um, you get a little more reduced wear and tear in comparison to short-term rentals. And then there's a lot of flexibility for the owner. Like you have the ability to adjust rent prices several times a year to keep up with market conditions, which is impossible when you have someone lock into a 12-month lease,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, but there are also some cons, right? You got to furnish it and make sure you keep that up, right? So hopefully you're not going through 3 couches a year, but you never know what happens. But again, high quality of tenant, um, kitchen, linens, bathroom stuff,
Sure.
you got to keep up on that. Um, and you could have, it is I guess you can technically say it's a high turnover, but it's an intentional high turnover, right? You could have, let's say, on average, 2 to 6 tenants per year, right? And then you've got vacancy gaps, right? Vacancy gaps are definitely more significant. My buddy bought the new house, the one in Jax I was telling you about. He bought it a year ago, and the house he kept to rent out for this specific reason hasn't happened yet.
Right.
So he's making these two crazy mortgage payments, right? Until he can get it rented out. Um, and at that point, you have a company that you're working with for
Right.
these kind of things, right? And then you have to include utilities, so nobody's paying the monthly utilities but you. Um, and they just require a little more active management. It's not as passive. Um, but I think between the options, it's definitely the sweet spot.
I mean, it's less chaotic than short-term rental,
Hmm.
but it's still complex because it's job demand in that area. I
Yep.
mean, that can fluctuate and change. If companies are going to move, that can impact your decision of a midterm rental. And like you said, the upfront cost of furnishing, that's a big ordeal.
Hmm.
Obviously, and then cleaning it out and then finding a replacement, that's going to fit that mark. So, I mean, if you had to call it, if you had to say, hey, short term, midterm, long term, what are you gunning for? What are you thinking?
I am going for a mix.
Okay.
Okay. So, all right. So, once again, let's start at the top. Couple fix and flips, right? Because what I want to do is create my own comps. And so I'm sticking in an area. That's
Facts.
one of the most important parts. Like stick in your where appraisers go. So 1 mile radius, right? That's going to be easiest. So, maybe flip a couple. But I would hold, if it's just me, I'm holding no more than three because it's a lot. And I don't want to give all of my profits to a property management company, you know?
Mm,
Um, so in that respect, I know enough professionals to have somebody in plumbing, electric, handyman, right? I just
right.
create my own team, have them essentially they be on call. And then the short term or midterm rentals, I'm aiming for college towns. That
I
is
got
what
you.
I would aim for. I'm aiming for college towns, especially with the short-term rentals. Um, but also for the midterm rentals, I would expand into wherever a hospital campus is, like the big ones. Definitely near hospitals, because you have physicians and nurses flying in and out all the time for special surgeries, or maybe they're visiting physician and they're going to be there
Sure.
for 6 months, stuff like that. If it was the midterms, I'm aiming for hospitals. Short term, I'm aiming for hospitals and within like 5 miles of a college, a university, especially a major university.
Yeah, I was a property manager for 10 years, so I really had a full gambit. Short-term rental wasn't really in play,
At the
probably 10
time,
years.
yeah.
Yeah, so that wasn't something, but one of the I had a condo that I was managing, and it was for students. They were right around the University of Chicago, which is in Hyde Park area, and just they were from out of town or from up north, and they're coming, and mommy and daddy are going to make sure that the rent's paid on time.
Mhm.
And it was a little, they were quiet, because they can't get in too much trouble and stuff like that. I mean, the cleaning and the maintenance part when someone leaves it's just a cost, and you have to be mindful of it. Versus, I had a property that I was renting out, and I had a long-term tenant, and she
Mhm.
was there for 8 years. And I made the one mistake. She was selling the rent like clockwork. So
Okay.
I never, I was like, okay, hey, I don't even have to come in.
Oh no.
I never went to the property. She was selling
Ooh,
the money every month, and then all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and she's like, "Oh, I can't afford this anymore. I'm up." What? You leaving? Oh, okay. And then I go into the property, and it looked like World War II. You know,
nightmare.
the
Been there.
idea that people are going to live like you live, no.
Yeah,
And
not at
and
all.
no, and it's just amazing. I was just like, man, you go to my house now, and to some degree, yeah, because I have kids, and they've made it look like someone lives there. But there's some areas where it's like, does anyone live here?
Right,
'Cause
does
man,
anybody go in this room?
I've gone years with ever breaking a refrigerator door, and people will break
Right.
faucets, and I'm like, how do you do that?
It's crazy some things that people do. It boggles my mind. Like, even though we're on the lending side, we have stepped into more houses than the average bear, and people do weird things.
Man, so you got to be careful. Let's take care of these housekeeping notes. I know we got some questions here that maybe we can answer, but that's a great segment. Obviously, and I felt good that we were able to get to the short, mid, and long, and we'll take it from there. But this episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, refinancing, or investing, call Epic today, 708-905-5300, 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Jess, how do they get a hold of you?
So, as always, I'm going to drop a link in the chat. It is easiest to find me from you can type in Jess Ford Mortgage, right? You can type in J Ford Mortgage on Instagram. It is JFord_consulting. The link I'm going to drop in the chat will also give you all of my contact information. So, if you have questions, you want to run an idea by me, you need a mortgage, give me a call.
Awesome sauce. Now, after the show, if you're on LinkedIn today, if you're on Facebook, after the show, we want you to go to the YouTube channel, Epic Spotlight. Epic Spotlight is our YouTube channel, and we want you to listen to our most recent Epic Spotlight interview. It was with Robin Weirley. Robin is a former flight attendant, physician assistant, and the creator of the Adapts Portable Rescue Sling. Discover how
Ooh.
her unique journey from aviation to healthcare led to the creation of a groundbreaking device reshaping airline safety and empowering people with disabilities to travel with confidence. Had a great opportunity to speak to Robin. It was really in an industry that I'm not too familiar with. Obviously, I'm very fortunate, and I didn't even know there was like disability conferences. I was totally ignorant to all these types of things. It was really fascinating, and so it's a good listen. So when you have an opportunity, check out the Robin Weirley interview on Epic Spotlight. And we do have some preferred listings. I'm just going to put hit here. So DanteRoyster.com is where we have preferred listings. These are properties that we know the listing agent. We have worked with them in the past. They know us. And so when they get that golden pre-approval, you might just get your offer accepted quicker than someone else's because they know that this can be delivered. So go to DanteRoyster.com. Check out the properties. We have properties in Texas. We have properties in Maryland, Florida, Illinois, obviously. And so when you have, if you know of anyone that is needing to get pre-approved for a mortgage, if you know of anyone that's needing a property, make sure you're checking out the DanteRoyster.com preferred listings. They're right there. So check those out. Let's get to some questions. We got some Q&A. And I do
Yay, Q&A
apologize.
time.
I want to apologize to everyone yesterday. I had technical difficulties. I didn't even realize people were asking all these questions. I didn't get to any questions yesterday, so I do apologize. We're going to try to get those answered later today. Not here for the mortgage, but definitely about to drop off a compliment. Miss Jess, you're fine, fine, fine. Carry on.
Well, thank you.
It's always nice to have fans.
Right? I
For
made my day.
beginners, yeah. Randall, for beginners, which rental strategy is the safest to start with?
So Randall, it's really going to you're not going to love this answer. It's going to depend on you, and it's going to depend on your risk tolerance. Um I would say, okay, start with a flip maybe, right? Now you need to get a good team together. Your contractors are going to be everything. But starting with a flip, and remember, the house doesn't have to be falling down. You can get something that is awesome and just maybe it just needs to be updated, right? It's giving 1992 and you need to bring it up to 2025, right? Start with a flip, and that is going to allow you to gauge how much you want to commit to this. Um, and at that point, you can decide whether you're going to sell it, I'm done, or if you're going to buy and hold. Um, if you buy and hold, if there's a mortgage on it, start with a 1 year lease. I wouldn't try to go short term or midterm until you've got some capital built up and a little more experience. Um, a long term tenant, right, 12 months is going to allow you to work out the kinks.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think house hacking is another way. Sometimes the fix and flip is intimidating, 20% down. I've had those conversations where some of these people are struggling, coming up with that type of money. I know I had a client we were able to do a line of credit for, but based on what she wanted, it wasn't enough money to actually
Hmm.
complete the task. So I think there's, it just depends on your situation. It's hard. There's not one versus the other. And safe, safe will you'll get passed by. This is about taking a risk and betting on yourself. That you
Right.
have the intuition, you have the knowledge, you've done the study, you've done the work to really put yourself and exponentially grow. But I just think owning property is the way to go, and I think you want to establish yourself by owning something that may not give you thousands of dollars up front, but it's a it's a cross country run. It's a
Right.
marathon, not a sprint. So
Yeah. It's a long
you
game.
yeah you always are 5 years, 10 years from now. You have to kind of plan these things out, map them out accordingly. Um, when does it make sense to switch from short term to midterm rentals?
When you tired of turning that property over every week, like,
Cleaning, baby.
right? So, Jennifer, do get on the Google, right? And do some research on, and like, don't struggle. Use Gemini or Chat GTP to your advantage because you're just looking for data, right? And you want to be as efficient as possible. Um, look for these companies that need these short-term rentals, right? Look up, use the phrase corporate housing. You may find a hospital, or it could be a nursing facility, it could be a corporation. Um, in our industry, right? So let's say you work directly for a mortgage lender. Mortgage lenders are sending people all over the place all the time. When I travel for any of the lenders I was working with, when I submitted my expense sheet, it was insane because they're always putting you up in some hotel, right? I'm sure there are some corporations that have gotten hip to the game and just bought some property. So just kind of see what's around in your area, do the market research and see if it's going to be worth it. And if you don't know if it's going to be worth it, grab my contact information out of the chat and call me, email me. Let's get a second set of eyes on it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's really a preference. I mean, because if you started doing short term, and as long as it's going, you keep it flowing. I mean, I think it's based on the location. I mean, versus,
Yeah,
am I closer to a hospital or am I closer to a beach?
right.
If
Or like in Michigan, you could be, right, it could be Detroit metropolitan area, but you could also be in the sticks,
mm,
you know? So
yes, makes a
it really
difference.
depends.
All right, good question.
Now, the people out there, just FYI, at some point, we'll do one about people who are sitting on a couple acres, even if it's only two or three, because
Mm.
there you can definitely generate some profit from that.
ADU, or are you thinking about farming?
So I'm thinking about just this. But you throw, let's say you got 2 acres of land and your house is on one. You throw a pole barn on the other acre in the back. That's weddings. That's graduation parties. That's retreats.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's
So
another
we'll
job.
talk about that when we talk about ADUs because we need to get a little more into this new law, but they'll be excited to hear about that.
No, that'll be good.
Yeah.
What's the biggest mistake you see new house hackers make?
Not doing their research, not reading the paperwork. It's the research that is the big thing. Like this is not something you can play by ear. You have to be a planner. You have to plan out your steps. This is not a, you know, by the seat of your pants, Lego, let God, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. That is how you lose your money.
I remember distinctly a client that bought a property with the intentions of potentially looking to rent it. And she was upset after a week or so because she kept getting offers for the rental that were below what she thought she could get for it. And the issue that she faced was that she was in the wrong school district.
Oh, see,
So
that's
that's the
huge.
little things. The school district dictated what the average rent was in the area, and she was like a block over, and
And
she
that's
was
something a good
mad.
realtor would have pointed out. Like, that's another thing with the you have to get a thoughtful, like, not just a good realtor. You have to get a thoughtful realtor. When you pick out a realtor, you need to really know that they actually care about how this process turns out for you.
That they actually want to be a part of your team forever, with
Yeah.
that long-term mindset. We talked about that on Monday, actually, about, you have to make a decision on having a financial team. I really appointed it to almost like a board of directors. You have to have a kind of a board of directors that surrounds you. I know I have it where it's like, hey, if I'm about to make a move, there's probably about 5 people I'm going to call and say, hey, I'm about to make this move. What do you think? And 2 of them may say it's a bad idea.
Mhm.
3 might say it's bad, but I'm just getting intel because I know they have a
Right.
different brain wave. They think a little bit differently than how I would look at it, and I'm just trying to get perspective of, "Oh, I didn't think about that. Ah, that's a good point. I
Yeah.
gotta look into that." And I'll take that intel, and then I'll make my final decision. Whether I do it or not is still up to me, but I wanna get that intel from different people and really forming a financial team around you. I think we're if you don't have one, you're really dropping the boat. I mean, there's that level of, and this is what I don't like about our job. Sometimes there's a level of, oh well, I'm just going to go with Paul because he's got the lower rate, and
Yeah.
it's like Paul's not even going to be in this industry in 2 years from now.
And it turns out Paul did not have the lower rate. That's just
Oof.
what he sold you.
Well, that's just a double whammy. But even if he did, Paul's not even in the industry in 2 years. He's not going to give you that insight. He's not going to give you that development. He's not here for the relationship. He just churn and burn. It was just something to do. Not to say it has to be, oh, should I just always go with the lower rate? No, of course not. It's got to make sense. But if I'm in the wheelhouse, I mean, I think I'm worth $8. I think I'm worth $25.
Any reputable lender is going to be within a couple $100 of each other, and at that point, it comes down to service,
Facts.
you know?
Beyond just that one transaction.
Right.
Are ADUs better for cash flow or long term appreciation? I knew me saying ADUs was going to open up a door. Nick caught me right away.
So we don't have enough data yet. Like it's such a new thing, right? Like we know these as mother-in-law suites and
Mhm.
who was charging her rent, right? And if you were, there wasn't a lease on it. Um AUDs, okay, so properties with AUDs in the country. I just read this the other day when I was looking at the new law. They're mm, approximately 21% more than comparable homes over the last 10 years, right? So before 10 years ago, you couldn't find them. Now they're kind of popping up everywhere. Um, yeah, I guess it depends on the square footage. It depends on the price. And it also, listen, long term, right? That AUD is connected to you and your property somewhere. So how long term is long term for you, right?
And
How long are you
let's
going to
just
keep it?
tell the audience what ADU stands for.
Accessory dwelling unit. So, like I said, we affectionately refer to those as mother in law suites. Dante and I have a host of renovation loans where you can either just do a renovation or you can acquire the property and do the renovation all with one loan. And they allow you to add on an ADU. So if it's not there, you can build one. I don't know if you guys saw that Martha Stewart just released like this line of prefabs manufactured homes, right?
Wow.
Um, and manufactured homes, like, don't sleep on them when it comes to ADUs, right? Because they are built inside, they are manufactured in a factory, which means they're also temperature and climate controlled, which is huge when it comes to building something like that. Um, Long-term
Yes.
appreciation, I don't know. We don't have enough comparables yet.
No. So, Nick, hang with us. We're going to be back next year, still talking this thing, still talking Epic Lunch and Learn. We'll get to ADUs when we get more information. A short answer, I'd probably say cash flow. It's hard to predict long term appreciation. That's just what it is. But it's just definitely, I think ADUs have come up because you're like, hey, I have this house, I have this acreage, and I'm just trying to maximize this land that I have, and how can I maximize it? And so I think people are using their backyards. They no longer need the tree house. The kids are grown. They no longer need the little playground, the little multi-purpose flooring for soccer or basketball is not needed. I'd rather build an extra dwelling unit for someone to be able to live, and maybe you're charging $600, $700. I know I went to a house. It was a single family house, and it had an ADU in the backyard. So right next to the garage was an ADU in the backyard. So I've seen these, nice little small little house, and $700-800 you could probably make on that. It just, once again, it's proximity to you, so you could be a landlord and a homeowner at the same time on your own land. You don't have to drive anywhere. So you can assess it. You can make that a short-term rental, mid-term, long-term, however you see fit. So it's just more about, probably more efficient way of
Mhm.
renting because you're maximizing every square footage of the land that you have. But we'll travel down that lane
I
down the
think
road.
this next question is also going to give Nick some insight.
By zoning laws, usually block ADUs, or are they becoming easier?
So, ADUs have caused a massive shift in the market and they're actually becoming much easier. A lot of states have passed what's called a by right law that overrides the strict local city ordinances, and it's all to help solve housing shortages. But because zoning is primarily handled at a local level, the requirements can be different. So this is one of those, it depends on where you live things. Um, it's either going to be you're going to get this by right or you're going to get a special permit. It depends on what state you're in. Like for instance, California, Colorado, Massachusetts, those are all by right. So they can, without permission, go ahead and build ADUs. But then there are parts of the mitten, right, Michigan, where you may need a special exception. And a lot of states in the South, and they may also place some rules on it, right? So they may place some there's this one rule that I was reading the other day while I was looking at the new laws. Most cities impose what's called a Goldilocks rule. So essentially they are regulating minimum to maximum size and height limits. So you're going to run into that as well. So it just depends on literally where you live. And then one thing that people don't really think about is parking, right? We don't really think about parking
Mm.
when we're talking about ADUs. Um, but there are more parking laws out there in these streets than anybody would ever imagine, right? And it is by usually by footage, right? Like well, one of them, a really common law is like an ADU can't be the parking, the placement. ADU can't be more than 4 feet from the side of the property lines. And then parking mandates, like you have to have one, depending on the state, like you have to have one off-street parking space per ADU, or you've got, waivers you have to get. So like California and Colorado, you can throw up those ADUs all you want. Um, but if you want to create parking, you're gonna have to get a special permit for it. So it just kind of depends on where you live. You just got to look at your state, and not just your state, but your state and local laws, your city, your county laws.
Awesome. Good stuff. We
So,
got two
but
more.
yes, it is becoming easier.
Paula writes, do you recommend self-managing rentals at the start?
Oh, Paula, what's up? You're back. I love Paula's here every week, and I love that.
That's awesome sauce.
Um, okay, once again, Paula, that's one of those, it depends on you, right? Are you currently working, right? And if you are you remote? You working at home, or are you working outside of like in an office? Do you have small children? Do you have elderly that you are taking care of? Like it's really about like how much time do you actually have, and do you have a team? So back to the plumber, the handyman, the electrician. You have to have a solid team behind you. So it's really just how much do you want to run back and forth, and how much time do you really have to commit to it?
I talked about investments. I think we talked about it last week about, one is not enough. I mean, if you're really going to kind of jump into this world, like you said, three.
Three's
Um,
my max. I know my limits.
I mean, it's a job, and so you do have to factor in, what is your current job, what is your primary job, this is a secondary job, how much time you have to really get involved. So you have to make right decisions. I mean, obviously, it behooves you to have a property manager. First of all, property managers is a tax write-off. So make sure
Yep.
you seek an accountant. You can write that off. And second of all, just having someone that might have more experience on just dealing with tenants, if, especially if that's not your personality. I know a lot of people, think they can talk to people, but you go out into that world and you're like, you can't talk to me like this. It's just a different situation. It's a different animal. So I just, whether you want to self-manage, I mean, it saves money, and you might learn a lot about your building, but it depends on how much time you have to really allocate to it, because it is a job. No question asked. It is a job. And we got one final question here. How do lenders typically view ADU income?
That all comes down to, is there a lease? Is there a lease in place?
Tax
If
returns
you,
too.
yeah, and tax, right? You have to be able to. Is there a lease? And depending on, like when you're doing it in the process, let's say it's a refinance, let me see those 12-month cancel checks, right? So you have to prove that this is just like any other rental property. There's a lease in place, you are collecting income on it. If that is in place, lenders are cool with it. Awesome. Great. And with any rental income, for this is just blanket for everybody, if you have been a landlord for less than 2 years, we can count 75% of that income. Once you're over 2 years, right? So let's say your 25th month, we can count 100% of that income. So yeah, it just depends on if all the right paperwork is in place, Kevin.
Awesome sauce. Well, we did it again, my dear. We made it an hour. And next week is something special. We got Christmas Eve.
It's gonna be Christmas Eve. That's right.
Christmas Eve, and it's actually the last episode of the year.
Of the year. Yep.
I am gonna go see that mouse, and so I got to disappear. Exit stage left, and
It would have
so
been
yeah,
cheaper for you to go to Tokyo, but yeah.
would have been. Do I
Yeah,
gotta do
it's
the research?
literally cheaper to fly to Tokyo, go to Disney there, and fly back than it is to go to Orlando.
Crazy,
Wild.
crazy. I might have to look that up.
Right. Wild. Insane.
But yeah, so no, next week is our last episode of the year. It's amazing. We started this in August, and just look where we are now. Appreciate everyone listening week to week. We'll have a different topic. If you did like this information today, if you want us to talk more about real estate investing, make sure you give this a thumbs up. That helps me and just know, hey, this is what you guys want to hear. This is what you want us to be talking about. Obviously, the market has been kind of goofy. It's been kind of quiet as it's the holiday season. Not as much drama as I thought it was going to be.
Goofy is a good description.
It's just what it is. I'm just like,
Yeah,
man,
goofy is a good description.
it's just we got the quarter point adjustment. Rates are kind of stagnant, but they say inflation's in check. So I don't know what this means. It doesn't look like we're going to know about the next Fed chairman like they initially said we were going to know.
No.
So
Yeah.
just going to the abyss in 26. There you go. Abyss in 26.
We'll figure it out.
We will, but we will continue to have conversations, continue to educate and answer your questions. Thank you, everyone that always asks questions. And you don't always have to be here to get a mortgage. You're here to get some
Right.
knowledge. And if the information that we're dropping today is something that you find, oh, wow, that's useful, maybe a friend, maybe a family member, maybe a coworker needs to hear this information. So you sharing this information to somebody else is just as helpful as if we were going to help you individually. You might be all set, but someone that may need this and may need some help, and we're here to help. So make sure you pass this information to people that need this. And until next week, Jess.
Until next week, my good man.
Wednesday Wisdom with Jess is done.
Yay.
Yay. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.